Hi, my name's Vince Sheehan, and today I'd like to talk about Do the Right Thing, the 1989 film written by, directed by and starring Spike Lee. I'd like to go through this film exploring the structure of the plot as well as the themes that crop up in this film. I guess if you could sum up this film in a sentence, it would be something like the tensions between different ethnicities in a rather claustrophobic and run-down community. The community is Brooklyn in New York, and I guess you could describe the film as being in 3 acts with a coda at the end. But even before the film starts, the titles are absolutely superb. And in a sense, the titles are a microcosm of what the film is about. We have this tremendous performance by Rosie Perez dancing to Public Enemy, Fight the Power. And this is a kind of recurring signal post, if you like, throughout the film, which of course the lyrics are about racial injustice. And the way Rosie Perez dances, you know, so wonderfully, but also really passionately, and at one point she's like boxing. It seems to be projects something of the tension between these communities in this area. Such a eye-catching and jaw-droppingly brilliant way to open this film. Rosie Perez, of course, plays Tina in the film. But then we come into the first act, and the first act of the film is really an introduction to a plethora of wonderful characters. And that's one of the joys of this film. The characters are so beautifully drawn with many different shades of light and dark, humour and pathos. We meet these characters on a boiling hot day in Brooklyn. And we're introduced to the main character, Mookie, who is played by Spike Lee. And he's a pizza delivery guy. He works at this pizzeria run by Sal. And Sal is this Italian-American with 2 sons, and Pino and Vito. And Mookie works for this family business. We're also introduced to this this character, an older character called the Mayor, and the Mayor is this alcoholic character, but he speaks wisdom and he's an authority in this block. He's the one who actually says do the right thing at one point during the film, and he fancies this older lady called Mother Sister. And again, she seems to be this figure of authority in the community. We also meet this man with some learning difficulties called Smiley. And he seems to go around with a picture of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And although you might be forgiven for thinking that he's an incidental character, this picture he holds actually again encapsulates and perhaps is the film in a microcosm as well. This picture of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. We meet Mookie's sister Jade. We meet Mookie's girlfriend Tina with their son. We meet this radio DJ called Love Daddy, played by Samuel L. Jackson, and he is very much the lifeblood of the community, and you hear his voice all the way through. We meet these 3 old guys who sit always by this red wall, kind of putting the world to rights. And their scenes are hilarious. They've got this fabulous banter between them, kind of witty repartee between them. We have this rather tall character who perhaps seems to have some kind of difficulty relating with others. Perhaps he's autistic. His name's Raheem, Radio Raheem, and he goes around with this big cassette player. He's quite an imposing presence. And we have this other guy called Bugging Out, who's this angry young man who really seems to have it in for the guys at the pizza parlour. There are other characters as well. There's a Puerto Rican group as well, group of guys. There's a Korean family who run the local shop. And this is the world we're introduced to. And this first act is a joy getting to know all these characters and what makes them tick. Act 2 is all about the tensions which are simmering between these communities, which are going to reach a head on this boiling hot day. This transition from the last act, looking at these newspapers, etc. We have some shots around this community in Brooklyn. And then some people are playing around with a fire hydrant. The black community are playing around with a fire hydrant, spraying people on this boiling hot day. And then this Italian-American guy comes in with his car, and he's not happy because he's worried that he's going to get soaked and his car's going to be ruined. And of course his car does get ruined. And he comes out and he's incredibly angry, and he wants, he wants blood. He wants to know the guys who are responsible. These youths did it, and and it's here for the first time we visibly see the hostility between two groups of people, between this Italian-American man and this group of black Americans. And, the Italian guy is really going into it. He's really using racist language. And the police come involved and they basically tell him to clear off in a roundabout way. They turn the fire hydrant off. And the police are a rather ambiguous presence in this film. We see a bit more of them later on. We also get to know a bit more about Sal and his son. Sal is a decent, hard-working guy. He puts up with no nonsense in his pizzeria. But his two sons are not as impressive. One of them, Pino, is incredibly racist, cowardly, ignorant, quite a frightened individual. And he seems to treat the black people in the community with a great deal of suspicion. And he's often downright rude to them. And we also have the other son, Vito, who's rather weaker. He's scared of Pino. And in this act, Mookie gives him some advice about how to deal with his brother, to stand up to him. It's here that Bugging Out, the young kind of angry black guy, gets his trainers messed up. He's really unhappy about that. He has it in for this guy who's just moved into the community. But we also see some hostility within the groups. Mare is bullied in a humiliating way by some of the young people, the youths. And Mare although he's an alcoholic, he's got this very noble aspect to his character. The Koreans who run the shop seem to suffer their own form of abuse from mainly from the black community. Particularly the three older men seem to be quite racist towards them. And Raheem, the big guy with the big cassette player on his shoulder, he comes into the shop with his music blaring, and Sal is not happy about that. He basically tells him to clear off or turn his music down. So there's that real tension we begin to notice between the Sal and his family with their customers, essentially, because everyone comes to eat at Sal's. So this second act is all about the tensions bubbling and occasionally breaking out in these confrontations. Act 3 is when things come to a head. Act 3 centres around the riot. Bugging Out is not happy that Sal in the pizzeria has just got Italian Americans on his wall, on the photos on his wall. He wants some black guys. Sal tells him to clear off because, it's his place, he can do what he like. Bugging Out tries to start a boycott, and Raheem's not happy with Sal because he told him to turn his music down, so he's part of the boycott. Smiley joins in. And initially, and people really aren't interested in this boycott. They love Sal's pizza, they're not interested in all this. Sal also seems to have a thing for Mookie's sister Jade. But eventually, at the end of the day, this boiling hot day, just as Mookie's finished his work and the pizzeria is about to shut, Raheem and Bugging Out and Smiley come in, and they basically cause a fight, and Sal retaliates, smashes Raheem's radio, and then things get broken. A fight breaks out. The community gets involved. Everyone seems to be against Sal's pizzeria all of a sudden. Sal's son Pino doesn't help, kind of venting his racist abuse at the black community. And then the police get involved, and by this point there's this massive riot happening on the street. And Radio Raheem's picked up and arrested, but he's strangled and killed by the police officers. The community see this and they're in uproar. That fuels the flames of the riot. And it's important to note that Mookie, who we kind of see, he's the character we relate to the most. He's like the main character in the films, the Spike Lee character. He's the one really who starts the riot proper by throwing a dustbin through this pizza place through the window, and of course this is where he works. After this riot, we have a coda in the aftermath of this riot. The next morning, Mookie comes back to his place of work. He wants to be paid, but Sal, of course, is devastated. He's built this business up from nothing, and it's just in ruins and in ashes around him. And these two seem to, despite this, seem to have a mutual admiration for each other despite what Mookie's done. And there seems to be a future in this relationship between these two guys. We have a rather touching scene between the mayor and mother sister, and we finish with Love Daddy. And then at the end, the final titles, we see that picture Smiley's been carrying around of Martin Luther King and a quote from him, and Malcolm X and a quote from him. So what are we to make of this film? Well, it's an amazing film because it deals with such difficult issues in such a brilliant way. It's not a black and white thing, pardon the pun. It's more about the kind of humanity is of course more complex than that, and in different contexts, in different environments, people act in noble and great ways, but people act in terrible ways, and that's for people of every ethnicity. Despite those who historically have, perhaps been treated badly, particularly in the United States where this is set, of course. So there's a real humanity about this film, a real depth to the characters, and they're complex and intriguing characters. And it's very difficult to lay the finger of blame at individuals like lesser films would do, because Spike Lee knows that we're far more complicated than that. There's these tremendous monologues as well. Raheem has this monologue about love and hate with his with the rings he has on his fingers, love and hate. There's this tremendous speech from Love Daddy, the radio DJ, about all the great black musicians. There's this fantastic and funny bit where everyone is just giving their worst racist abuse in these monologues. That the black guys are abusing the Italian Americans, the Italian Americans abusing the black guys, the Koreans are just abusing everyone. It's just a real human. It's such a human film, and in highlighting the tensions and hostilities which can happen between people of different ethnicities in a small community. It somehow brings everyone together as in our shared humanity. So that's why this is such a fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, please watch it, and please check out my slideshow about the structure and themes after this. Thanks for watching. Bye.